Spurs oversee bus parking Borough thanks to a Harry Kane penalty which saw Spurs keep the gap to 9 points at the top and gain a further 3 points on both Arsenal and Liverpool. We discuss what impact results over the weekend may have done in this week's e-Spurs podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! 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 Tottenham!
Hi guys, welcome back for another hour of talking all things Tottenham Hotspur. Of course, this is the e-Spurs podcast. You can of course follow us across all social media platforms. We're on Twitter and Instagram at e_Spurs. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/e-Spurs page. You can also catch us on YouTube, Pinterest and Tumblr. And for all the links to all e-Spurs platforms, you can head to our new website, which is now e-Spurs.com. On the e-Spurs podcast tonight, we'll be talking about the 1-0 win over Middlesbrough. We'll be taking your questions as always, and we'll be previewing a massive tie against Liverpool at Anfield next Saturday. What a game that's going to be. But before we talk all things Spurs tonight, I'm pleased to say we've got Jace back with us. Jace, how are you?
Alright mate, enjoyed Saturday's game, looking forward to tonight.
Indeed, and likewise here. And I'm pleased to announce we've got Chris Slegg back on the show. Chris, how are you?
Hi Ricky, hi Jason. Yeah, really good, thanks. Good to be here again tonight and glad that we can be talking about another win, a crucial win for us at the weekend against Middlesbrough.
Indeed, very much so. Chris, for any of our new listeners that may not have heard you before, do you just want to give a background of your following of Spurs?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I've supported Tottenham all my life. I'm lucky enough these days I'm a sports journalist at the BBC London, so I cover Tottenham among all of the other clubs in London. And recently this season I've released my first book about Tottenham called A Love for the Lane. It was published in October. It's available on Amazon. It's something I've always wanted to do, and what with this almost certainly being the very last season at the White Hart Lane as we know it, unless there's a late hitch, which means we have to stay there for another year. It seemed like the perfect time to bring the book out. So it's in the book there's very many chapters about all the significant games that have been played there over the years. A lot of them are told through the eyes of former players, people like Terry Dyson, who won the double, Darren Anderson, of course, Gus Poyet, Harry Redknapp, the manager who took us into the Champions League for the very first time. So it makes it slightly different from some of the other books out there that you get to see the games through the eyes of the players and the managers involved. And I was lucky last week in my job to go and meet Harry Kane because Tottenham were celebrating 10 years of the Tottenham Hotspur Foundation. He kindly signed one of these books for me, and it's available on eBay. You can find a link to that on the Twitter page, A Love for the Lane, and all the money from the winning bid will go to the Noah's Ark Hospice, which is a charity connected to Tottenham, a local North London hospice for terminally ill children.
We'll just stick with you for a second, Chris. What do you make of the home form recently? Do you think they seem to be turning it on at the right time at the moment, with us looking almost certainly at the moment to leave the lane at the end of the season? It's 12 unbeaten at home. I think it's the first time in 5 years we've gone this long unbeaten. Can we do it and keep it this way until the end of the season? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, the home form's incredible. The form overall is incredible. I've not known really a Tottenham team like this in my lifetime, as a team, a unit that can control games. I would say 3 of the best performances I've seen in my life following Tottenham have happened this season against Manchester City, against Chelsea and against West Brom. And I think it's going to take a lot for any team, given the way we blew away Man City and Chelsea, to come to White Hart Lane and actually beat us this season. You look at the remaining fixtures and, it's only Arsenal and Man U among the top 6 who are still to visit us, and that's our final 2 home games. So if somehow, I don't see it happening personally, I think this 9 points that Chelsea have got is going to be too much, but if somehow they were to slip up, that would be a huge end of the season for us with 2 final home games against Arsenal and Man U. I think it's unlikely we're going to catch Chelsea, but I feel really, really confident that second place is going to be ours. And, I've never had this kind of confidence. I hope this doesn't come back and kick me up the backside, but I don't see this team slipping up too many times, unless, of course, we've had a hard time with injuries. I hope there's no more. I'd hate to lose Kane again. I'd hate to lose Toby again. But if things stay as they are, I think second place looks highly likely. I feel really confident for the rest of the season, and I hope that somehow we could try and target one of these cups. Europa League would also bring Champions League qualification if we were to win it. I'd love to see Tottenham get to the FA Cup final and win it. I'm not convinced that Pochettino's going to put out teams strong enough to take us all the way in either of those competitions. But I'm hugely optimistic for the end of this season, because what I've seen so far has just been brilliant.
It has indeed.
In the main.
No, I completely agree, Chris. We'll definitely come back and have a chat with you about the Cups. Let's come to you, James. Let's bring it back to the game against Borough. I mean, to be fair, it's once again Spurs showing the importance of keeping a solid defence against teams simply set up to park the bus. On paper, potentially a huge 3 points, with the likes of obviously Arsenal and Liverpool dropping points over the weekend.
Yeah, I thought it was a game where we get lots of criticism for all the things we haven't got in our squad. We don't have that pace. We don't have the person that can come off the bench and conjure up a piece of magic. But I thought it was a weekend where it showed that our backup players deserve a bit more credit than perhaps they've got lately. I mean, Adama Traore's Middlesbrough's best player, and I think other than the first minute, I don't think he once got beyond Ben Davies, who everyone had been on the case of at Sunderland. And then again, we have Son Heung-min, who came in. Absolutely, he's erratic. Sometimes he makes the wrong decisions, things like that. But he was still the key moment that won us the game by taking his man on. And I thought he tried to take his man on throughout the game. And whilst as I'll accept that there's times when he makes the wrong decision, everything he does is positive. Everything he does is trying to create or trying to score himself. And those two players, I think, came out of Saturday with a fair amount of credit. Middlesbrough didn't really want to do anything to us. They're a little bit like Sunderland were. Nothing towards for 80 minutes. They never came out of their half. But, as I say, Manchester City have got some wonderful players, but they struggled to beat Swansea at the weekend. Liverpool have got Mane, who everyone wanted to buy with great pace. They lost 2-0 at Hull at the weekend. And sometimes, as I say, we should appreciate a little bit more some of the things we have got rather than the things that we haven't got.
Back to you, Chris. Do you think what Jason's saying there about the appreciation thing, I mean, it definitely is a case that when you play against a team at home that are sitting there parking that bus, it is very hard to kind of maybe find the fluidity. Is that sometimes what we're seeing at the moment? We've got teams that are respecting us so much at White Hart Lane, where they're just simply sitting there saying, break us down, and therefore you're maybe not seeing the most attractive football in the world that you want to see at times. Yeah,
I mean, exactly with this Borough game. I mean, I think they've drawn 6 of their 12 away games, haven't they? And they came there. I think their games have only involved 21 goals, their games on the road. So, they're low-scoring games that Middlesbrough have been involved in wherever they've gone because of the way they play. And they're not going to come to a team like us who are flying at home. I think we've got the best home record in the Premier League, haven't we? So they're not going to come there and give us any sort of opportunity. And yet we still created a lot of chances. Yeah, it's a bit worrying that we didn't take them. Kane had the goal ruled out for offside, didn't he? I think Eriksen had a good shot saved, and Toby and Son, they both hit the woodwork. So we were making chances. Yeah, maybe a bit lucky with the penalty. I thought it was a penalty actually, but I know some people don't think it was. But we got there in the end, didn't we? And many times in the past we haven't got there in the end. And this is a team that manages to do it, whether it can turn it on or not. Okay, it hasn't been the case every single time. I was gutted last Tuesday with the Sunderland match that we didn't get maximum points there. But this was another tricky one for those sort of reasons, the same sort of game, and we came through it with maximum points. So, yeah, I'm happy with what I'm seeing from this team nearly every week. Of course, you look back at that time in autumn where we just drew too many games, and that was a real low point of the season and going out of the Champions League. But all in all, I can't ask for much more from this season, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly hanging in there. That's all we can do at the moment, waiting for Chelsea to slip up if they do. And then if we can pounce upon it, that would be great. I think at the moment, they're not letting up any steam. James, I have to ask you, Harry Kane, he's now scored against 23 of the 25 different opponents that he's faced in the Premier League. This is a guy that's got 63 Premier League goals, only 11 have been penalties. It's not bad for a striker who, according to some, lives off penalties from the spot. He's certainly more than just a potent penalty scorer, isn't he?
I don't worry about the criticism he gets from other teams at all. We've had it all with a one-season wonder, haven't we? And that's why I now call him the one-decade wonder. They can mock him as much as they want. I think there's, the fact is, Manchester United would like to have him in their side. I think Chelsea would not necessarily put him above Costa, but he'd be in Chelsea's type of side. You can't tell me Giroud is any better than Harry Kane. I think there's any club would take him, and that's the biggest compliment you can play. And when it came to taking his penalty, he just dispatched it with ease, didn't he? Right in that bottom corner. Shame he missed a chance in the first half, which was actually a decent chance, which looks like it was a fraction too high for him. But there's no convincing any Spurs fans of just what Harry Kane means to the club.
Yeah, Chris, like you say, you've met him, you've spoken to him. He seems very, very down to earth, very level-headed. Is he very much like that in person?
Oh, incredible! I'm not just saying this because I'm a Tottenham fan, but I've interviewed plenty of footballers over the years, and I've sat in many press conferences, and there is this stereotype these days that footballers are completely removed from real life, and I guess some of them are, but he really isn't. And again, this is mentioned in the book that I've written. Jonathan Pearce, the BBC commentator who's been around football even longer than I have and has interviewed far more players than I have, he talks about Harry Kane in the book being a throwback to a different era, that nowadays he's one of the few players who will come over and have a chat with the journalists before a game if he sees them waiting in the stadium. He genuinely understands what football means to the fans. I mean, when a lot of them, when the cameraman that you're working with is setting up the camera, they're just standing there just wanting you to get on with it. I was lucky enough to just be able to chat to Harry Kane. He wasn't worried about it taking a few extra minutes. I was asking him kind of off camera about what it's like working for Pochettino, and he said this manager just knows about everything that's going on about this club. He cares about every player there. He values every player. He said he's probably looking out the window now, just overseeing things, making sure that this interview is going well. He was only joking on that, but he really feels, sounds a bit cheesy, but he feels the love. He feels the love from the manager. I think that we've seen that with all of the players. The way that Dele Alli hit the ground running when we signed him, and the way that so many of our players have improved under Pochettino. People like Kyle Walker, Danny Rose, and that record, it's scoring against, 23 of the 25 Premier League clubs he's faced.
Yeah,
I think it's only Man U and Cardiff he hasn't scored against, and every type of opponent he's come up against, he's managed to find a way through. And the penalty record, again, I don't care if other people say, well, a lot of these goals are penalties. Again, the fact he very rarely misses. I know he had that horror against Southampton, but that wasn't really his fault. The spot gave way, didn't it? The turf. See a Tottenham player with that much confidence from the spot. And actually, that's another thing we could say for Janssen. I know he hasn't shown a lot of confidence his time at Tottenham, but he sticks them away as well. To see two Tottenham strikers great at taking penalties is quite heartening, because going back a good few years, Teddy Sheringham, great striker for us, but God, he did miss a lot of penalties. So with Kane, again, I kind of had that confidence I haven't had as a Tottenham fan in the past, where I expect him to score a penalty. I'm not sitting there thinking, oh God, we're going to miss. I nearly always expect that he's going to tuck it away, and he more often than not manages to do that. Even
the one he missed against West Ham a couple of years ago, he actually played a 1-2 off the goalkeeper and scored with a rebound anyway, didn't he? So
yeah,
it's that good. It's that good he can even play a 1-2.
Jace, we'll come back to you. I mean, Spurs, we're 5 points better off than this stage last season. I'm basing it obviously at the moment not on the same amount of, the same games we've played, but just in terms of the games overall. Does it feel like it? And I ask that only because, Chelsea, I think we all have to be honest now and say they look like they are going to run away with this league. Are you looking at it now from a Spurs perspective and just thinking, let's just maybe finish second?
Well, it does to me feel like we're 5 points better off. I've been full of praise for how we've been this season. Would I like us to finish? Yeah, I would like us to finish second to show that we've improved on last year. I think more than the finishing position, though, for me, it's to break that 70. What's our record? 72 or 73 points, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing for me. If we can push up 79, 80 points, then that shows a definite improvement. Whether we finish fourth or not, then if you're picking up more points in the course of a season, then you must be doing better. And I suppose would I like to finish second? It depends who to, doesn't it? If Chelsea go on to win the league as they look like it, I'm not so sure I do want to finish runner-up to Chelsea, because of just that negativity that Chelsea fans will always say, well, look, you'd have won the league if it wasn't for us, so perhaps I'd sooner finish third to Manchester City second, as long as we finish above somebody else. But no, seriously, I think we're absolutely fine. I think the club's improving at the moment. As I say, there's lots of things people keep telling me that we're not, but I think they're blind to so many of the strengths that we've got. I mean, Victor Wanyama on Saturday was absolutely immense in that game. And I think once he missed out on the ball, and you look at that axis of Dembele and Wanyama, and you think, there's no better pair in the league than that, is there?
No, and I can't remember, coming to you, Chris, I can't remember having a player like Wanyama being so consistently consistent. I know that's a bit of a double pump, but I don't remember a Spurs player coming in from a summer to hit the ground running like he has. We know Pochettino, it's a player that he knew very well from his time at Southampton, but the way he's adapted, it's like he's been with us for years, hasn't it?
Yeah, I like that. Consistently consistent. I think that's the perfect way of saying it. Yeah, brilliant. It's the only summer signing that's worked out, but he strengthened us, because he really has. And 5 points better off than last season. I know that isn't necessarily against the same opponents, but I certainly feel like we're a stronger team than last season. I feel like there's progress being made, and really that's all you can ask for, isn't it? To progress year after year. Obviously we'd all love to sit here being top of the league. We'd all love to be closer to Chelsea and really feel like there's a really genuine chance of still winning the league. But to come second, that's something Tottenham haven't done since 1963. You think of the thousands and thousands of generations of fans who've gone and supported this club before we were even born, and then the many since, and haven't seen Tottenham do that. And I so hope that we can at least finish second this season, because it really will be progress. And yeah, I think Wanyama was a brilliant signing in the summer. I didn't expect it to work out as well as it had. Again, I didn't expect it when we signed Dele Alli to work out as well as it had. I've been surprised so many times by what has happened since Pochettino arrived, that all in all, as I've said before, I really can't have too many criticisms of what's happened. It's just really that we didn't sign a good enough striker as such, but I can understand that the gamble for Janssen, and I'm not writing them off completely at the moment. I can see why they bought that sort of player. Unfortunately, we lost Kane and for 5 Premier League games, and Janssen wasn't the man to just step in. He wasn't someone to step in and hit the ground running, and ultimately we paid the price for that, because that is where we've lost this valuable ground on Chelsea. But yeah, there has certainly been so much progress, I think, this season.
I think if we did finish second, whilst I suppose in fairness we haven't been in a title race or felt anywhere near as close to it as we did last year, I think second would be quite something for us to get, because last year we heard that we were in the race for top 4 because Chelsea were so poor and Man United were so poor, and Liverpool were so poor, and it was all about the other teams being anywhere near good enough, and Manchester City fell away rather than us. This year, when you look at that gap now between us and 6, we're in with 4 other of the big boys that have all strength, and they've all got players that everyone told us all summer we should have been going for. And so I think to come out on top of that race would actually be a better achievement than where we finished last year, because, as I say, the strength of those sides is such that nobody can make the excuse this year. If we genuinely finish second, it's because we genuinely have been the second best side in the league, rather than the case of the others being weaker.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the vulnerabilities that Arsenal and Liverpool have exposed. At times, Arsenal and Liverpool have looked brilliant, but at their most vulnerable, they've looked so vulnerable in a way that Tottenham used to. And we go back to the autumn when we were unbeaten until we went to Stamford Bridge, and people were saying, well, we're drawing too many, does this unbeaten thing really mean anything? It really did, because this was a team that dug in, and it was going to take an awful lot to take anything from them. And I think that mental strength has really served us well into this latter part of the season, that we're not as vulnerable. We don't look, again, anything could change, I hope it doesn't, but we don't look like the sort of team that's going to find ourselves 3-0 down at Bournemouth, or 2-0 down, conceding 2 goals in a couple of minutes at home to Watford.
No, I agree with you, and I think when you take into account also, the disruption of injuries we've had this season, we've had the likes of Lamela, Kane, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Lloris, Dembele, Son and Rose all missing in sustained periods throughout the season, and for us to cope with that and still remain second, keep in touch at the top, it really is testament to Pochettino and, like I say, the work he's doing at Spurs. And I have to ask you this, Chris, taking your Spurs hat off and putting your journalist hat on, do you think it would take Spurs to win a trophy in order maybe to have that slight more better recognition from the media? And I don't mean from a perspective that we're not getting it enough at the moment, but what I'm referring to is that you get the likes of the Liverpools and the United. I know it's based a lot on history, but for Spurs to be seriously, seen as a title contender season in, season out, do they need to establish themselves by winning a trophy rather than, like I say, the progression in the league or finishing second? Or do you think they both play in tandem somewhat?
I think winning a trophy is really important for fans. I think for sections of the media it is still seen as something. I really think Tottenham need a trophy. It'll be, if we don't win a trophy this season, that'll be 9 seasons without silverware since the 2008 League Cup. That'll equal our longest trophy drought since the Second World War, and which seems kind of strange because I feel like the club's healthier than I've ever seen it, but at the same time it's a very long time to go without winning a trophy. But the reason for that is this shifting in priority in football, where obviously being in the Champions League is all the owners really care about, and certainly when you're building a new stadium that's costing from, I've seen so many different figures mooted as to how much it's actually going to cost. I don't think that the owners value winning the FA Cup or the League Cup. The fans certainly do. I think that, yes, there might be something for a player and for a manager to think that in a big game, in a FA Cup semi-final or a final, that when the chips are down, you find a way through and you get across that finishing line and you win a trophy, that can help you progress overall as a team and as individual players. I mean, we saw this weekend, I was watching Match of the Day 2 Extra with, I think it was Didi Hamann on there, saying that whenever there was a big game for Liverpool under Brendan Rodgers, Liverpool didn't manage to win through it, and that he says that's the problem still now with Klopp, for all the progress there has been. When a big match comes around, like Southampton in the League Cup semi-finals over 2 legs, you certainly would expect Liverpool to win that. You'd expect them to get into the cup final. Yes, it would have been tough against Man U, but who knows? He might have got his first bit of silverware very early on in his career here in England. And Didi Hamann, he knows what it's like to play at the highest level, and he says it certainly means something to win a cup, even if it's just the League Cup. I say just the League Cup because that is the lowest priority among them all, much as I'd even love to have seen Tottenham take that more seriously and win it. So, yeah, I think the long and the short of it, yeah, I think it would mean something. It would mean a big deal if we could win the FA Cup or the Europa League, but I don't think it would make any difference to the owners. I don't think they would put added value onto Pochettino as if he was to win a trophy. I don't think they're that worried about it. For them, it's all about finishing in the top 4 again, and I think that's the same for all of the very big clubs now. I
mean, that seems to be apparent. I mean, going by the likes of maybe his last Champions League lineup, when he seems to rest a couple of key players, and I think the argument was that, well, hold on, we're in the Champions League, why are we resting players to try and get back in it via the league? Again, at the moment, Chris, the way you're looking at the league, I mean, it was quite an important weekend for Spurs, wasn't it, with the likes of us winning, Liverpool and Arsenal dropping in points, further strengthening our position where you would say the minimum requirement this season would be Champions League football again. It looks like at the moment we're going to be on course for that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, obviously after the Sunderland game, we absolutely had to beat Middlesbrough, and you look at the run in now, and I think, obviously we've seen how well we've played for the majority of this season. We've got 3 of the top 6 still to play. Liverpool this weekend, and then right at the end of the season, Arsenal and Man U both at home. You look at Chelsea's run in though; they've only got 2 of the top 6. I can't see them dropping many points at all. I can't see us dropping many points at all, and I hope therefore that we've got a little bit of a gap, haven't we? What is it? Just 4 points now to Liverpool, who are in 5th. So we've got this slight cushion. Obviously, that just makes this weekend's game huge because we want to keep that distance between Liverpool. We don't want to see that gap shrink at all. But I'm really confident. I think, as I say, this Tottenham team's got a mental strength that I've not seen from Tottenham teams over the past. It's got a manager who's calm and assured and backs what he is doing. I don't think... He said he felt last week confident enough to say that, we are still in the title race, and that does take something. A lot of managers we've seen try and play it down in the past. He was happy to say, no, look, we're still in this. We're going to keep going all the way. And I think he's probably learned something and improved in himself from last season, because I think, looking at it from the outside, that run in last year did get to Pochettino, because I think he is usually very calm on the sideline, and when it came down to those last few games, West Brom at home and then obviously Chelsea away, he really started to almost let the passion overrule him. He came running onto the pitch, didn't he, in the Chelsea game, and then it all went off, and I think the players kind of took their lead from him, lost their composure, and I can't see Pochettino making those mistakes again. I don't think he's made many at all in his time at Tottenham, but that was probably one that he did make, where he just let the passion get too much, and I think he'll have learned from that. So yeah, I'm really confident we're going to finish in the top 4. I hope I don't jinx it. I'm not the sort of person to usually feel confident or optimistic about Tottenham, but from what I've seen 24 games in, I think we have every reason to think we're going to finish in the top 4, and as I say, hopefully in the top 2.
Yeah, I mean, you would argue that kind of Middlesbrough game we had, I mean, it's a game that probably previously down the seasons we wouldn't always see out of that result, and we can see the late one. Jay's coming to you. Son, the penalty he won for us seemed a bit of a carbon copy to the one he got against West Ham. I mean, there will be a case of where his finishing will definitely be up for question, but his gameplay in particular, it was okay, wasn't it? I mean, he looks like he makes a great contribution off the wing. That definitely seems to be his preferred role. Would you agree with that?
Without a doubt, and I mean, for me, it was, and most people that seem to have seen it, I think, have said it's a penalty. So I'm surprised if there has been one or two people thinking it wasn't. I think I just like the fact that, as I say, he's positive in everything that he does. He looks to take players on. He looks to make things happen. He doesn't stand around when things are going against us and go and disappear. You know, he may well get the ball and he may well lose it 6 or 7 times, but he doesn't drop his head and he'll still get the ball and try and take his man on. And I think, you know, in a side that sometimes we do need somebody to be able to dribble through a packed defence or something, then he's showing that he's the one who wants to do it. I mean, you know, we went to Sunderland and I was there that night. He got a lot of criticism that night, but I thought on the night, as I said last week, over the Ali Eriksson Kane, he was always the one that was busy even that night. So I think a lot of the criticism he gets is a little bit unfair, although we'd all like to see more end product. But, you know, tell me a wide player in Premier League for... Let's find the last wide player, genuinely wide player, that has a great productivity with every ball that puts into the box. I think Ryan Giggs' cross-completion rate was something like 12%, wasn't it, in his time at Man United? But I don't remember too many people being disappointed with Ryan Giggs. So, you know, where he is and the type of football that you play these days, if he does get wide and look to drive a ball into the box, there's often one white shirt in there amongst 4 defenders, and it's not so easy to find that final ball all the time.
No, I agree. And a word, Chris, back to you, Dele Alli. Again, the weekend, it's staggering to think it's only his second year as a fully-fledged Premier League footballer, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, 20 years old, and as I said earlier, I didn't envisage last year that he would play many games, and, you know, he not only started nearly every game, but was one of the best players in the Premier League. And then, again, he's done it again. He had a couple of quiet months when, you know, all our players seemed to lose form at the same time, didn't they, in October and November, but he's come back stronger. He's shown strong mentality to have 11 goals from 21 Premier League starts. You know, he's got more than Eden Hazard, hasn't he? Hazard's got 10. And every game he causes problems. And just going back to Son there as well, that's something I'm impressed with Son, because I think he's improved from last season. And I think that's all you can ask of people, progress. And I think he's a better player than he was. And I think, again, nearly every game, at some point, he will cause the opponent problems. There's very few games with him where you say, well, what did he do this afternoon? Because he might drift in and out of games, but he'll be in the game at some point, and he'll be causing problems at some point, as he did at the weekend. No,
I completely agree with you. Guys, what we'll do is, I hope that that's pretty much the Borough game wrapped up for you. Obviously a massive important 3 points. We've got some questions to put towards Jace and Chris after this short break. We'll see you in a minute. Hi guys, welcome back to the e-Spurs podcast. Thank you as always for joining us. Now, as we ask you guys every week, you can get in touch with us with any questions you may have for the panel, whether it be in regards to a topic or whether it be in the games which we've just played. You can do that by simply going to our Twitter handle, which is @e_Spurs, leaving your question and simply ending your tweet in #eSpursPod for the guys to contribute to your question on a weekly basis. Tonight, we're going to start with you, Chris. We've got a question here. I hope I pronounced his name right this week. It's Paolo Juantasca at Piantoska blog, who asks, do you feel Josh Onoma will be good enough for a first-team regular, or should Ottawa be given a chance? What do you make of that, Chris? Because we saw a great finish from Ottawa for the reserves, I think, against Southampton during the week. Doesn't seem at the moment to be close to the first team.
The problem is we've got such a strong first team, and we've got such a young first team as it is. So the young players on the fringes, they're not going to get too many chances, are they? Other than if you have an extended run in the League Cup, and unfortunately we went out of that in what was our second round after beating Gillingham to get knocked out by Liverpool. So the chances to come in, and we're not going to see that again really now in the FA Cup either, because Fulham's going to be a tough game. They're going to field a strong team. Their manager says he's taking it seriously. Slavisa Jokanovic, the Fulham boss, is taking this competition seriously. So you can't see the real fringe players getting much of a chance in the FA Cup now either. So, I think any young player at Tottenham at the moment must feel that it's a good place to be. a good place to be learning their football. Great young first team players to be learning from. It seems, as I was saying earlier, from that conversation I had with Harry Kane last week, that the whole club is buying into the Pochettino process. So, you know, we want to see young players given a chance, but we're certainly giving young players a chance. We're such a good young team. We've got so many good young English players in there, and you know, the ones who are that bit younger, they're going to have to bide their time, and it's not going to work out for everyone, of course, but at least they're going to be learning in the right environment. I can't think there's too many better environments for them to be learning in at the moment.
Coming to you, Jace, if you had to be cutthroat, do you see either Josh Onumah or Nathan Odua potentially getting an opportunity at Spurs, or do you think they may have to look elsewhere?
I think Odua may well have to look elsewhere. Onumah, we'll see with Ghent and things like that just how much of a future he's got. You know, he has struggled to get games this time. I mean, even that Aston Villa game, I think he only came off the bench, didn't he, in that Villa game, or did he start the Villa one? I know there's one of the cup ties recently. And I think just in that position, there are so many options and that in front of him. Are you going to leave Ericsson, Ali out for him? Harry Winks has now come in and more or less, you know, he's the first go-to person when things are going wrong, isn't he? You've got Dembele in there. I just think eventually the sheer number of people within those positions will end up being the same for him as it was for Ryan Mason, that he'll end up realising his football future lies elsewhere, and in the same way that Tom Carroll's worked that one out.
We'll stick with you, Jace. We've got Harry Charalambos at S4E23, regular contributor, who asks, do you think we will win the race for second, or will we repeat the same as last season? Let's face it, Chelsea have the title wrapped up.
I can't honestly sit here and say we will definitely finish second. Every week, you know, a few weeks ago, Manchester City looked like they were going to completely fall away. Bravo was letting goals in for fun, and then suddenly they've come back with 6 points this week, and now everyone's on their case because of Gabriel Jesus has come in. It's tough, isn't it? I think when I look to last year's position after 24 games, you know, we were 6 points clear of the team six, but West Ham was six and Southampton was seventh. You know, Liverpool and Chelsea weren't even in the top seven at that stage. And the gap now, when you look at it, it's just 2 points between second and is it Manchester United in six, or 5 points, isn't it, between us and Man United? So, you know, we're being chased by better teams. I think what we don't want to do last year is have that fall away where we don't win any of the last 4 games, and we have the end of the season carnage that happened at Newcastle, and particularly with those last fixtures, including Man United, home Arsenal, home West Ham, away. If we capitulate like we did in that respect, then we definitely won't win the race for second. But yeah, I'm still confident we'll definitely finish within that top 4. But there is so much football to be played, and we all know how important it is to keep key players, you know, certainly Kane, fit for the rest of the season, that's for sure.
Asking you there, Chris, I mean, from a journalist perspective, we've seen Pochettino, when he was in charge of Southampton, even last season with Spurs, that he does seem to tail off towards the end of the season. Is that a concern for Spurs if we are, like I say, looking to finish, you know, if we can't finish top, then best of the rest?
Yeah, I guess that is slightly, obviously, the way we play, the intensity that we play, the way he gets the team training the whole way through the season. Again, that was something that was brought up with as I was mentioning earlier on Match of the Day 2 this weekend, Match of the Day 2 extra regarding Klopp. You know, Liverpool kind of burnt out since the turn of the year. They haven't won, have they, other than the Plymouth FA Cup replay. So I said already, I'm confident we're going to finish second. But yeah, we do have a tough run in the last 4 games, in particular. Arsenal, Man U at home, West Ham away is such an intense atmosphere, because obviously it's such a huge rivalry for West Ham and their fans, and you know, we can often get wrapped up into that. And then Hull away, you look at that at the start of the season, you think, well, great fixture to end it off with, really. Not too many troubles there, but there are worries there. But as you were saying there, Jason, it's incredible how different the league looks now from last season, how things have changed so much, and yet we are still there, second, 5 points better off than we were. You know, we've kind of been the most consistent team over the last two seasons. I don't know if that's true statistically, but that says good things about us, I think. And we've lost fewer games, haven't we, than Chelsea? Chelsea have actually lost 3. We've only lost 2 games. So I just feel that it's going to be very hard for other teams to take points off us.
Chris, we'll stick with you for a second because you alluded to it earlier. The final question of the night is from Sean Foster Fosman, who asks, I mean, I think you have pretty much answered this earlier, but do you expect Spurs to prioritise either of the upcoming cup games, and how will Poch rotate the squad over the next 3 games?
I think it's really interesting that, actually, because obviously the Europa League carry the Champions League place if we were to win it. So in a way, you'd expect as a club to prioritise that over the Fulham game. But I think you look at the way the fixtures pan out, and we've got that kind of 2-week cushion between Liverpool away and Stoke at home. We've got 3 cup ties in between. I guess he'll field a pretty inexperienced team away to Ghent. See if we get away with that. If we come back, he'll feel confident about the home leg the following week. So I expect him, looking at things right now, to field a stronger team against Fulham than he will in that first leg against Ghent. So in a kind of backward way, I almost see him prioritising Fulham over the Europa League, because Ghent are 5th in the Belgian league, Fulham are 10th in the Championship, but playing really well. They'll field a strong team. They want to go far in this competition. They're almost, Fulham, you could kind of say, are almost on a par with Ghent. So there's not much in it as regards to the quality of opponents. I think he'll put a stronger team out against Fulham in the FA Cup than he will against Ghent in that first leg, and then see how that first leg goes.
Yeah, very interesting what he does do. I mean, both competitions very winnable for Spurs, you have to say. I think, like we've echoed on this podcast, we'd love to see Spurs go all the way in a cup. I think you would argue that that's what ultimately we're missing at the moment. We are missing that title as winners. As such, whether that be the Premier League or, like I say, a cup, it's been far, far too long without a trophy. And again, I think that would take this squad to the next level. So, all being well, we can most certainly, look to really press ahead with these cups. We're going to come on to Liverpool. Jace, we're going to start with you. I mean, Liverpool, you would argue, in their worst run of form at the moment, 5 without a win. I hate to say it, Dr. Tottenham, are they going to pay Liverpool a visit, or do you think we can go there, show no fear, and get a result?
Well, the first thing we have to do is get onto my old subject of gamecraft. There can't be any sloppy errors at Liverpool at all. We certainly don't want to be going there gifting them goals like we've tended to do in some of these big games. And even that Man City game, you look at the 2 goals we conceded, and as much as a battering as Man City gave us, they ended up being completely 2 gifted goals. So we can't afford to do that. I think they are definitely, I always think, beware the wounded animal. There's lots of people taking the mickey out of Klopp. There's lots of people laughing at Liverpool at the moment. But, if they beat us, they're only a point behind us. So, the gap between us and Liverpool isn't so big. And our record against Liverpool in, the last 4 or 5 seasons is really poor, isn't it? I think the last time we beat them was, Gareth Bale at White Hart Lane with a couple of free kicks or something like that. And since then, we've got nothing really against Liverpool. So it'll be a really tight one. As I say, they'll be hurt. They've got all week to prepare for it. I think Coutinho is getting back to fitness. And they're too good a players, some of those Liverpool players, to continue on a bad run of form. And the other thing I would say about Liverpool is, as poor as they are defensively, they concede a hell of a lot of poor goals from set pieces. Even in the last week, conceded from a corner at Hull, they conceded to a free kick with Chelsea, and we're not exactly great scorers from set pieces. So we perhaps won't prey on their weaknesses like Sunderland or a West Brom or Middlesbrough would look at their weaknesses. It's time for us to put down a statement away win. We did it at Manchester City. We've done it against Manchester United in recent seasons as well. It's time for me to go to Anfield and go there and get a result, because we know they'll press us. And the one thing that we have struggled against this year is teams that press us. So I think it's a lot harder game than 1 or 2 people are predicting.
Chris, what are you seeing it like? It's going to be a tough one, isn't it, up there? I mean, we haven't got, like Jason said there, the greatest record up at Anfield and Liverpool as a whole at the moment. Have we got to be weary of a backlash?
I think it's a really, really dangerous time to play Liverpool, because, for Liverpool across any season to go this long without a win it becomes a crisis, and I think Klopp's too good a manager to allow that crisis to go on much longer. And as Jason was saying, there's too many good players in that team to allow this crisis to go on much longer. For that reason, I see it being a draw. I think we're good enough to go there, put on a good performance. We've been consistent throughout games. We've managed games so well. I think it's going to be really hard to win there, but I think we're going to be able to get a draw there. But yeah, I just think Liverpool. I don't think Liverpool can really afford another win. Things have just been going so wretchedly poorly for them that I think they're really going to be on their game this weekend. I think it's typically bad timing really for us to meet them right now, and do think we're good enough to come away from there with at least a point. They
lost to Everton the week before, like Liverpool lost to Hull, and everybody was on suddenly Manchester City's case, and they're the ones that are in the top 4, and they really came at us, and I mean, in many ways it should have blown us away. Manchester City that day. So I can see it being that everything that happened in that Manchester City game, I can see the similarities in the build-up to the Liverpool game.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. Lads, coming back to you, Chris, a point, what does that give us? I mean, would you take a point?
I think the way that we control a game, we go there with the mindset of coming away with a point. I don't mean that in a negative way, but I think Pochettino plans everything to the nth degree that making sure we don't lose up there will be the priority, and he is a priority manager. He plans week to week, as we saw with the Champions League, which is the only criticism I would have about this season. But he knew the priority was the Premier League, and therefore he wasn't even fielding the strongest team in some of those Champions League matches because he was planning for the match at the weekend. So, I think we'll go there looking not to get beat. If we come away with 3 points, all the better. But I think it's probably going to be a draw myself. But my prediction would be 1-1, which that's what it was last season, wasn't it? Kane got a really good goal up there, and I can see it mapping out that way again. Yeah,
and a quick word, Jace, what do you have to go for if you had to go for a result?
Oh, this is the one that I'm always nervous about.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing, I look at Liverpool and I don't think they've lost to any of the teams in the top 6 this season, have they? And they got something at Watford, so I think every team that's beaten Liverpool this season is actually in the bottom 10 rather than the top 10. So it shows you that for those big games, they definitely get up, particularly at Anfield. I mean, Chelsea went there a week ago and only came away with a draw, missed a penalty. So I'd love us to go there and win, but the wounded animal, it's going to be really tough. I'm more leading towards a draw, or maybe even worse than that. I'm always sceptical going to Anfield. I think it's given me mental scars ever since we lost there 7-0 when I was a kid. I've been mentally scarred by Anfield ever since then.
It's just a tough one, isn't it? It's Saturday night underneath the lights at Anfield. I mean, they say the fans aren't what they used to be there, but I mean, I think they'll be looking for a reaction, and for that reason, I don't think you can. It's going to be a tough game, but I think we've proven this season, our away record is up there amongst the best. We've only suffered 2 defeats in the Premier League. Having said that, against Chelsea and against Manchester United, but apart from that, we've been brilliant on the road in the last couple of years. I think it's only something like 4 defeats in our last 28-29 on the road, so we've definitely got a record there to not for anyone. So on that basis, I think, like I say, it's going to be a very entertaining game. 2 of the teams you'd argue in the Premier League that play some of the best football, and I think, like I say, it's going to be an entertaining game. I just want to get your chaps' thoughts on the news we've heard this week regarding Daniel Levy, who seems to be bringing back in Steve Hitchen. This is a man who supposedly scouted Luka Modric and Luis Suarez during his first spell, and it appears he's coming back in as a senior head scout, I'm led to believe, for Ian Broomfield, as opposed to a direct replacement for Paul Mitchell. Chris, do you know anything about this at all?
I don't know any more than what we've read in the papers, and I don't know how big a role he did play in the Luka Modric signing, other than the fact that he was at the club. But you look at it, and we do need to sort something out soon, don't we? Because we're losing valuable scouting time. As I said earlier, I do think we've strengthened from last season, but it's only really because of Wanyama. The other signings so far haven't worked out, and Kudu, Sissoko and Janssen haven't really worked out, and we can't afford, if we're looking to progress every season, another summer like that. So we need to make sure we get that side of the club sorted out pretty quickly, really.
I don't really take much. I mean, I've seen the news, and as long as Pochettino's happy with the bloke coming in doing the scouting or being involved with the scouting side, that's good enough for me. It's just, presumably he gets the brief of the type of player that we're looking for, and then, it's just a small cog in it, isn't it? Because he could come back with any amount of scout reports and uncover an array of talent, but there still has to be then Daniel Levy sign a check, and do we do a proper deal with his club and things like that. So even if he identifies one, it doesn't necessarily mean that we'll go ahead and sign him. And I think, like all scouts, some they get right, some they get wrong.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It'll be a case maybe of watch this space and let's wait and see. And Danny Rose, finally, chaps, we're hopeful we're going to hear the news shortly as to the amount of time he's going to be out. Chris, for you, what he brings to us down that left-hand side, as great as Son was on Saturday, it'll be a big miss, won't he, going into Anfield without him?
It'll be a huge miss for any big game, and I think that's the problem with, we've got such a strong first team now, but when any of the key players are missing, it really does hinder us, as we saw earlier in the season with Toby and Kane both out. That's when we dropped all of the points, and we're not quite the same team when any of that. It's become a really settled first team now, and that's that. Looking back to that last question, that's kind of the next step for this club, isn't it, really? Because we've got to get stronger back up. So, I mean, Davis is great and has done really well, but we've got to build this squad now. We've got a really good first team, but we've got to strengthen the squad.
Jace, what do you make of that? Danny Rose, I mean, I know you're nervous about the Liverpool game anyway, but potentially going up to Anfield without him as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a bigger loss because I just feel that in the last couple of weeks, we've probably, since Danny Rose has been out, probably Traore and Mane are probably the two quickest players that play off the right in the Premier League this season, and that's exactly when you'd also want Danny Rose's defensive abilities to match up with their pace. And whilst we controlled Traore on Saturday, I think Mane will be an entirely different case because he's got better players around him. So it'll be a big miss to us, Danny Rose, but let's just hope it works out.
Fingers crossed it does work out. Chris, going to give you that last opportunity. I know you wanted to maybe repeat what you said at the start of the show for anyone who wanted to get their hands on a copy of the book. Do you want to give that out again for the guys?
Yeah, that's really kind of you. The Love for the Lane, which is available on Amazon, but I've also got a copy which Harry Kane very kindly agreed to sign, which is available on eBay. And if you follow A Love for the Lane on Twitter, so at A Love for the Lane on Twitter, you can find the link to that eBay page where you can bid for it. Every single penny will go to the Noah's Ark Hospice, which is a North London hospice for children. Tottenham do great things to help. Get you A Love for the Lane, signed by Harry Kane, and then follow my Twitter page at A Love for the Lane, and you can find on there the pinned tweet that will direct you through to eBay and bid for it. And if you do want to buy an unsigned copy, they are available on Amazon. Just search A Love for the Lane by Chris Slegg.
I was going to say, I think I'd probably better get a signed copy of his book and joining in his training session, which I think he's been pushing out. He's only got a special training session tonight. Go and train with Harry Kane on his fitness work.
And I don't think I'm fit enough to get involved in
that. No, better to take the signed book.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be back. I really appreciate it. Come on, you Spurs.
Indeed, likewise. And Jace, thanks to you as always.
No problem, mate. Let's hope it's a good one next week.
Fingers crossed. And guys, we'll be talking again, hopefully after, on the back of 3 huge points at Anfield. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Tottenham, no one can stop them.